So this week on my podcast, I have John Fagg with me, and he currently is at University of Arkansas. And what's your role there, John?
I am Deputy Athletic Director, and I have a long title. I am Deputy Athletic Director for Academics, Integrity, and Student Athlete Development. So
what I love, I'm so excited to interview you because John and I have known each other since our dads both worked for Coach Tommy at U of A.
1989 is probably when we met, something in that neighborhood. We were awfully
very good friends. And then my husband's was a GA for John's dad.
Yeah, and then I was a GA for your husband. So you forget about that. So at Arizona when I graduated, that was my first job as a GA for Bex. So,
oh gosh, I didn't.
Yeah, you just forget. It's a lot. So our paths are intermingled for sure.
They are intermingled. And then John was compliance at Fresno State when John was coaching there. And I used to meet with John all the time about, what can I do as far as meeting with players and all that kind of stuff, because I was representing NFL players. So John, tell me just a little bit, since just explain to me your path and where you've been, because I know you've now worked in almost every single league. So,
yeah, I've been a lot of places. As you mentioned, obviously my dad was a coach, so I grew up in coaching, grew up in the business, which is really fun and exciting, as you know very well. I started my professional career though at the University of Arizona, where I graduated from. So I worked in the Pac-12 for a little while. I was as a football coach. I then went and worked in Division III, basically at Davidson College in North Carolina as a football coach. I worked in Division II at Mars Hill College as a football coach. And while I was at Mars Hill, I kind of fell into compliance. It's a fun story. We won't do the whole thing today, but I basically ended up in compliance kind of by accident when compliance was a really new field. And in compliance, I've worked for the Big South Conference. I've worked at Fresno State University, so in the WAC for us, at NC State University in the ACC, and I was 8 years there. And I've been in the SEC now for a little over 13 years. And along the way, I've kind of built up, kind of started as a compliance person at NC State. I branched out into academics and sport administration. Been a sport administrator for women's swimming, women's basketball, men's basketball, women's soccer, wrestling, but most of my time has been as a sport administrator for men's basketball and football. I've been that for most of my time here, one or both of those at the same time.
So currently your role at University of Arkansas, what is your role there?
So again, I'm Deputy Athletic Director, oversee our compliance unit, our academic unit, student athlete development, name, image, likeness. I'm the sport administrator for women's swimming currently and football. I just gave up basketball a year ago when we hired Sam Pittman, our new football coach. Lots of stuff going on, obviously COVID, a new coach. We had struggled in the SEC. And so thought it was important to concentrate on football in that regard.
So I know, one of the big reasons why I wanted to interview John too, besides that, I just know him.
Yeah, just a good athletic person, hopefully.
Oh, and we've been talking a lot about the NIL stuff, and I know University of Arkansas has really been progressive,
yes,
ahead of the curve, way before I think the legislation even passed. So tell me about the things about what you're doing there in the NIL space that is maybe different, unusual, better for the student athletes. You've seen more progress, whatever it is you're doing that.
Sure. Yeah. So, kind of first of all, we think we're as good as anybody in the country with name, image, likeness. It's such a growing space, but we started about a year and a half ago and said, we are going to stop thinking about the problems with NIL and start thinking about the solutions. Mm-hmm. And we were going to be, I have a big saying for me is don't be solution oriented, not problem conscious, right? And so you need to be solution oriented, right? And so we decided that we were going to find solutions and be ready to go whenever it really hit. So basically in August of 2020, we started weekly meetings. We have what we call NIL Friday, and started just brainstorming about all the solutions we could come up with to help. What's it going to look like and how are we going to help our student athletes? Fast forward to now, We have conducted 5-week-long seminars with our student athletes, about 8 hours of instruction. We've done it in a 5-week format, a 2-day format. We have a class this semester that we will teach for open to any student. So we have a class ready to go. And mostly what we said is we thought that the vast majority of people were saying that the way to name, image, likeness success is clean up your image, be a good player, do these things, and maybe you'll end up with a job. Well, we started a little over a year ago with where are the jobs? How do you get them? And backed our way up into what education should look like to end at jobs.
Gotcha.
So to give you a good example, actually, a good comparison, and this is public information too. So, there was an article the other day about Influencer, one of the big companies,
Right.
and they said that they have like 100,000 student athletes registered. They have 1,360 something deals in their system for $1.25 million for an average deal of about $900. Well, we went in-house, partnered with our business school, our Office of Entrepreneurship and Innovation, our small business hub. We have 80 student athletes with just under $300,000 of deals for an average deal of about $3,300.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so we feel like we are outperforming the market. Everything has been cooperative with our student athletes. It's all about helping them maximize themselves. We figure that will maximize us as well.
I agree with you because I've been dealing with some other universities.
Sure.
They won't even let a student athlete identify as a Tennessee State football player.
Right.
I shouldn't have said the name of the school, but I was shocked. I was like, they aren't getting that this is like co-branding and this is going to build your brand and the student athlete's brand. But they felt like the state law of Tennessee says the university may decide themselves whether or not you can use their name or a logo or anything else. And this isn't even with an ad. It was just with promotional purposes.
Oh, gotcha. Right. Yeah.
Say in a promotional piece to see if a brand wanted to align with the student athlete.
Right. I see. Right. Yeah. They cannot even identify themselves at all.
Which, by the way, is a fact, and it's not really a trademarked word. So I was like, okay, but as the representative, I got to make sure my client and myself are not violating any university or state rules. So I got to go with whatever they say. Now, I think they might eventually figure out that's not the way to go. I don't know.
Yeah, we definitely have guardrails. You can't just do anything. So for example, you can't use our marks unless you're partnering with a current sponsor who is sponsored at a level that they can use our marks. That's one place.
They're paying so much money that they can,
They have the right to use our marks, therefore they can use our student athletes with our marks.
Right.
And then we're starting to let them use some apparel deals for themselves and co-brand a little bit. And we know, and we've told our kids, hey, what it looks like today may not be tomorrow. We're trying to be really honest with them. We're probably starting with a little narrow field. So just be patient. If you have an idea that you think is great, come talk to us. Don't be afraid to come ask. And we've spent hours and hours with 2 of our student athletes in particular, who want to do some apparel stuff. And they're asking, how is it going to work? Where can we wear our apparel? How can we do it? Can we put a Razorback on it? And we've said, hey, maybe not today, but let's keep looking at it. And maybe the second run. And therefore, at least while we might be saying no, it's the manner in which we say no.
Well, can your student athletes at your school say, I am a soccer player at University of Arkansas?
Yes.
Yes. So, and the state law in California specifically states that you can identify yourself as athlete. And the reason why they said that is because it's a fact. It's not a trademark. So you don't have any problem with that.
Right. And so another way that there are some places, I believe, trying to be a little more stringent on someone's Instagram, they identify themselves as an athlete. Their profile picture maybe is in their uniform or something like that. And then let's just use easy numbers. 90% of their posts are all athletic related in their gear. And then they want to do a sponsored post.
Yes.
We say that's fine.
So yeah, now, so the interesting thing, that was going to be my next question to this general counsel at the university. Like, is every student athlete supposed to scrub their Instagram?
There was one point where that was going to be the national standard. And if you wanted to sponsor, you wanted to monetize, then you had to have a separate account that had no reference to the university whatsoever. And I called BS on that. I'm like, you can't tell people that. That's impossible.
Plus,
And so,
why would you want to do that? Because, for years, the opposite has been true. Universities have been able to use student athletes' name, image, and likeness however they wanted. Now,
you know, and I know that there's a piece of our business that's about control. I just don't want to cede control.
Yes, you should listen to John Baxter.
yeah, exactly. Well, and so literally, again, another piece of how we got where we are. So I've been in compliance for a long time. I've been in compliance now really for about 25 years. And one of my first years in compliance, we deregulated employment. And the comment, the worry was that if you deregulate employment, donors are going to give $1,000 tips and all these kind of things. And you're going to go work and be a waiter, and all you got to do is wait tables one night, and the donor will drop you $1,000 tip, and you go on about your business. And so therefore, big market schools will win all the national championships or things like that, or big money schools will do it. And last time I checked, that's not how it's played out. No one even talks about employment anymore.
Yeah.
So it did not implode the system. Then fast forward to I don't know how long it's been, 8 years ago now, 6 years ago, when we changed scholarships to allow for cost of attendance.
Yeah.
And everyone said that kids will only get recruited. The only question they'll ask in the recruiting process is, how big is your cost of attendance stipend? Mm-hmm. And if Arkansas's is $100 bigger than Alabama's, then suddenly no one will go to Alabama and they'll all come to Arkansas. Well, we know that's not true. That's just not true. Kids go to school and play where they want to play, and they're people. And now cost of attendance is not a big deal. It's important, but it's not a big deal. I think 5 years from now, name, image, likeness will be pretty smooth. The kids that are supposed to make money will make money, and the kids that aren't supposed to make money won't make money.
Right.
It's pretty straightforward.
I agree with you. But okay, now let me ask you this.
Sure.
Let's say you're a Nike school, right? You got your Nike right there on your shirt.
Nike shirt on. Yep.
So now you have a deal with Nike, and all these student athletes are wearing the uniform, with the Nike swoosh on it.
Yep.
But they're not getting paid to wear the uniform.
Right.
How do we distinguish between that point? Okay.
Sure.
What's your take on that? Because I haven't read the individual agreements that schools have with Nike and Under Armour and Adidas.
Again, my kind of personal opinion is, over time, our agreements with the companies could potentially change and be more nuanced. I think potentially more similar to like the NFL says that you have to wear the uniform, but not gloves or shoes or things like that. And so that would be a possibility. Currently, though, is no, while you're participating in athletics with us, you wear our gear. Our gear includes shoes, shirts, shorts, everything.
Right.
And then even currently for us, we're saying that a person could not then necessarily endorse a direct competitor of Nike.
So
I don't think that will last. Right. You couldn't use another apparel company like that. Right. I think it's just a matter of time till we all realize that if you're not wearing our gear while you're doing it, and you're not doing it on our time, why can you not represent another company like that potentially? And so it seems like that's where everybody has to be patient. We will find I love the term equilibrium. Equilibrium is such a powerful word, because that balance of where everything's supposed to be, we'll find equilibrium.
Yeah, I agree with you. My question is, if a student athlete, though, then all of a sudden Nike says, geez, John, you guys have the hottest quarterback in the country right now. We want to do an individual ad with them, with Nike, who is not right? Do you have a problem with that? Is that a conflict?
No.
Okay.
It's certainly not a conflict directly with us because it's not our competitor or anything like that. It's an enhancement potentially. And so, yeah, if the hottest quarterback in the country wants to sign a Nike deal, for marketing purposes.
Well, okay, so
decide. So they again, and even us, we say we're learning this in real time, right? So every day we learn something different. So, but today, a young man or young woman could sign a Nike deal and wear their apparel and endorse their apparel just like they do some other type of thing. They couldn't reference it directly during our practice and competition, meaning, hey, I want to thank Nike today, before I get started. I want to thank my sponsors. Man, the Nike shoes were sticking today. It was wet. We would probably have some issues with those kind of things. But again, we think about it every day. So just a quick side bit. We also now have NIL Tuesday and Thursday. We have NIL Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And so it's a lot.
Those Tuesday, Thursday NIL meetings.
So we do logistics on Tuesdays and Thursdays and philosophy on Friday.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we try not to get too far philosophical. It's, hey, this is what the deals are this week. Here are the questions, great example. Someone wants to do a spot on a radio show every week. Okay. And they're going to pay them for it, for their appearance. Except their time on there is going to be talking about their sport. How was the game the past game? How's the next game going to be? And so we have to figure out how that really fits in. Are we organizing that? Are we ensuring that they get there? If they don't show up, or we have to get them up or make sure they're at their official, time? No, we're saying if you're going to do that on your own, you're on your own. And we may restrict. We may need to remind you that you can't talk about injuries because they have protection. They have a HIPAA release for us to talk about it, potentially, but not for their teammate.
Right.
And we're trying to educate them on how to do it. And are you sure you want to do it? We have a 72-hour rule that you have to report your deal 72 hours before you execute.
Okay.
Therefore, generally speaking, if somebody plays well in the game and somebody wants them to come on the radio, they're going to need a cooling down period, basically. They're not going to be able to go on the radio till Wednesday because that's 72 hours after they strike a deal.
Oh.
That helps a little bit.
Oh, because you can't say to the deal, this is a deal throughout the season and it's going to be every week.
We could.
Okay.
And so yes, you can do that. And then we're reminding them that you need to be cognizant of talking about your teammates, talking about your coaches, talking about where you are. And if you get hurt and you're no longer playing, what's that going to do to your deal? Is somebody going to make you, you better make sure it's in the contract and in the agreement. So again, we're trying to educate. Our philosophy is still get it done, if at all possible. We just hate to take a monetization opportunity away from one of our student athletes.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. So what
want
do
them
you
to get money.
Restaurants that serve alcohol? I'm sure you've gotten that.
Sure. Generally speaking, again, maybe I won't even speak just for us. I'll speak for what I think the kind of balance should be. Is I can absolutely endorse a restaurant. And if you serve alcohol at the restaurant or even a bar-ish, it's a restaurant and bar. And so maybe I'm going to endorse the restaurant and not officially endorse the bar.
Okay.
And then certainly I'm not currently going to say, hey, I love having a cold X beverage after the game, But we talked about that last week in our philosophy meeting. And it may very well be just a matter of time till a 21-year-old says, why are you restricting me from that? I have every right to endorse an alcoholic beverage if I want to.
Well, it depends on what your state law says.
Right. And but I mean, exactly. In certainly in several states, we think that actually is an opportunity. It's probably an opportunity, potentially an opportunity in Arkansas at some level. You could probably get there. And so we're trying to learn those nuances as well. So
what does the Arkansas law say?
Again, I can't speak directly to the wording,
Okay.
But basically, our law has some leeway, has some places where we can provide approval. You know, you can't use our marks unless we approve.
Wow.
Not, you just can't use our marks. So at least we have a way to try to work with our student athletes to find that balance.
So is there a way for a university to say, look, we're going to charge for any ads for this much money to use our mark? This is what it is.
So maybe make sure we're talking about the same thing, right? So we would not facilitate that deal between ourselves and a student athlete to say, I tell you what, restaurant, let's just use an easy one. A restaurant wants to, be a sponsor and use a student athlete. Hey, restaurant, you pay us this much to be a sponsor, you pay them that much to appear, and we have a deal. We wouldn't do that. That's facilitating deals, and we're not doing that currently.
Right, because that does violate a lot of the rules. But if a restaurant comes to the student athlete, let's just use a restaurant. Restaurant comes to a student athlete, it's right across the street from your stadium, and they want the player or soccer player or volleyball, whatever, they're going to pay him $500 a month.
Yep.
And they're also going to get $500 a month worth of food.
Yep.
And they say to the athlete, we'd also like to use the brand at University of Arkansas. What do you think University of Arkansas would charge for that? So
yep.
Where does the brand go back to you? Does the student athlete come to you? How
we want open lines of communication. First of all, we are an open door place. So we're encouraging our student athletes to not be nervous. If we say no, we may say no, we're not going to be mad. Right. So we want to actively support them, not passively support them. And so currently, if a student athlete, I call them kids, I'm getting old. The student athlete came to us and said, how does the restaurant get to use me and our marks?
Right.
We would say, go to Learfield. We're a Learfield school. We have a multimedia rights agreement with them. They would say, to use our marks, you have to be a sponsor at this level.
At this level. Okay.
Whatever that level is. And if you want to be a sponsor at that level, that also gives you access to our student athletes and the marks at the same time. Wow. And I believe that's maybe not totally common, but that's a direction that a few schools are starting to go.
But here's what's interesting, John, and I know you guys must have talked about this. So Learfield's saying, hey, if you pay us Learfield, you're going to have access to the student athletes and the mark.
They already have access to the student athletes. So it's not contingent on that. Mm-hmm. It's the athlete plus the marks. So it's about the marks. It's about getting access to the mark. You can get access to John Fagg, fourth string quarterback at best, if you would like it. But if you want access to me and want me to get to wear my Razorback shirt, then you're going to have to be a sponsor at X level.
Okay.
Of the university. Does that make sense?
But is there a way for them to be a sponsor at X level, get access to the athlete without paying the athlete? That's my question.
No.
Okay.
Not be able to do that.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to. Learfield.
We are not making our athletes available to them. They are free to strike a deal with an athlete, and the athlete will be permitted to wear our marks. Does that make sense?
It does, except for with the uniform thing. Because you're telling students, this is because I've tried to figure out how are we going to resolve this. This is why O'Bannon sued EA Sports, because the universities were getting paid for the gaming, and that had, I don't know what kind of
but the athletes weren't. Under this scenario, the athlete would also get paid.
But I'm talking about like Nike wearing the uniform. Each player on the field is not getting paid.
No, they get that. They're not getting paid. That is an agreement between us and Nike. And we also have sponsors. We have a restaurant with us that is a sponsor. Nike's a sponsor when it comes down to it, right? That's how they really are. And so a restaurant.
What's the difference between the gaming situation and every student athlete having to wear this uniform with this mark without getting reimbursed or without getting paid. Not that I think that this would cost the company a lot of money. So I don't.
I believe, again, I learned too, right? This is good dialogue. Hopefully people watch this and learn too. So they are not marketing, they are not endorsing Nike per se. The student athlete is not. It's not getting compensated for his or her own time.
Yeah.
We are a Nike school. If you want to play football or basketball or soccer or swim for us, we are a Nike school. And we give you free Nike gear.
Gotcha.
There has been some talk along the way of if it became a different model slightly, where, again, I've not worked in pro sports, but this is kind of the way I understand it works is, you don't get unlimited stuff when you don't get unlimited uniforms. You can't throw your jersey up in the crowd and get another one.
You have a deal with the company, how it works. They say, let's say it's a lot of players have like $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 worth of product that they can order, just like you and I did as coaches' kids, right?
Absolutely.
My husband always had so much money, and right when it was about to come up, we'd be ordering all the Nike stuff, right?
Yes. Same thing for sure.
So, and that's kind of the same thing. Like if I have a player who's drafted in the NFL, he is going to get a deal. Okay.
Right.
But it's going to be a product deal. Okay. Right. And, and that's how it works. So he gets so much. And the big thing in the NFL is sitting in your locker is this big pile of stuff that just came from Nike. And then if the person next to you doesn't have the pile of stuff, believe me, I'm getting a call. If my doesn't have a pile of stuff, and I'll be like, well, you're an undrafted free agent. You haven't made the team yet. So they don't normally care if, you got to make the 53-man roster. If you make the 53-man roster, then I might have a shot here if you are going to get playing time.
Right. Sure. And so I think where we are is if we're going to go down that kind of a path, then they're going to get X amount of stuff. And then when they run out of it, they're not getting more. It's a check in, check out kind of a thing, much more. Yeah. So we don't want to be like that. Here's what you get for free. You get access to all this stuff. If you now want to be compensated for that, then we're going to have a different deal.
Yes, that's because I see this being a potential issue, and I've tried to figure out how to resolve it. Because some of these, and I don't know if you guys have talked about this, having a third party for group deals. What I'm talking about is like EA Sports, trading cards, whatever. Where the kids can all opt in, and then the whole team is on the EA Sports, NCAA 2021 game.
Yep. Yeah, we are actively learning about group licensing now. Yeah. I literally just had a call yesterday, and because it was a Tuesday, so we had some logistics meeting, and so we invited a company to come talk to us and help us understand exactly how group licensing works. Now, I understand the basics, but explain to me exactly what the third party means, why it's a third party, why can't it be us, why don't we deal directly with companies and things like that. It made a lot of sense. And I think there's always that possibility that those kind of things are on the frontier, that our apparel deals may change over time. There's definitely that possibility. And then, there are some places that are trying to limit the ability to group license, and some places are not, and some states are not. I know we can do it. We're trying to make sure we understand exactly how to do it.
See, I think, first of all, I think Congress and the Senate will pass a national, there'll be a law for everybody so that it's
right.
That eventually, I think, based on, because I did listen to all the congressional hearings, and I did think they were going to head in that direction, but I think they were going to add the safety issue in there, because the student athletes were very worried about safety, health insurance. That was a big component
for sure.
they talked about, more so than the NIL stuff. But as I was thinking about it, I was like, how are they going to do group licensing deals? It's actually would be better if they let each university control that, rather than saying that you guys can't be involved in any deals. it makes more sense.
Right. Again, I think that's still the future. I think finding the appropriate balance between us, again, not facilitating deals isn't quite the same as making sure there is a group license opportunity.
For the school and for, so
Right.
the school gets some money, the student athlete gets money, and you know what I'm saying? Because
What you don't want.
I know those gaming companies are going back to want to do the basketball and football game. It was a very popular game.
Of course they do. So what we don't want is Arkansas or any other school saying, hey, company, whatever, restaurant, we need you to give our star recruit, not our player, our star recruit,
Yes.
tell him that he's going to get, or she is going to get $50,000 to come here. And therefore that's a promise. That's us facility. That's us dictating who gets the deal at the restaurant. That's not how it should work. The restaurant needs to be free to choose who they want, and we shouldn't be able to influence that.
But in the group licensing thing, example of the gaming, everybody on the team
Would have the opportunity, and you could not, somehow, and then number one isn't going to have a name on the back, and his face isn't going to be as recognizable and things like that. But yeah, you would think that the kids would want to opt in, and again, it's just a matter of exactly how much time it really takes to get it done.
Well, because that's going to be the next. Well, Ohio State's already done something with a third party.
Yeah, there have been a few schools that have done it for sure. I can think of 3 or 4 off the top of my head: Ohio State, North Carolina, and I'm drawing a blank. But I think those group license efforts are relatively limited currently. I mean, to some apparel and jerseys and some things like that. Doesn't mean it won't expand, but it's pretty limited in scope for the moment. And then see how that works and progresses, and then expand onto other things.
Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going to happen.
And then third parties out there actively soliciting schools to get in. For an example would be a video game, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, video games and trading cards. Those are the big.
Yeah, exactly. The two most obvious.
Because any player who gets drafted, let's say in the NFL, they automatically get a trading card deal with Panini, because
right.
You were drafted, they want to have a card on them, right?
Right, absolutely.
And a rookie card for sure. And then they have them sign them, and then we send them back, and then the student athlete gets their payment. And that's really how Panini works.
And I think that will come with college players too.
I agree.
Really quick. I mean, certainly individual players have already agreed to some of that stuff. And I think it's just a matter of time till we agree, or not even agree. We have our kids, or let our kids have a group license to share and all that. And everybody have a trading card.
And then there's the digital trading cards.
Yeah. We're pretty hot on NFT. So
yeah, NFT. What you mean, your student athletes? Or
we are pretty hot on trying to help our kids understand it. So we think that's a great place for a high profile athlete who doesn't know what else to do. That's a great jumping off point for name, image, likeness, right? Form yourself an NFT, auction it off, sell it, make yourself some money. You don't have to really do much at the beginning, with it, because you're not really delivering anything. You're selling the rights.
So you're saying create your own NFT, sell the rights.
Sell the rights.
Protect it. Are you going to let him be in University of Arkansas football uniform?
Probably not at the beginning, but that could come. But if you sell, I'm just use an easy thing. You sell a game worn jersey. I'm going to give you a game worn jersey. If nothing else, I get my senior jersey or something, you know what I mean? Or you're going to, I'm going to have to figure out how to deliver it. I'm going to have to go buy one and order, whatever. And I'm going to have to figure out how to wear it. I don't know. And so, but we've thought about more experience-based NFT, where you're going to, there have been a few people do these things where you're going to spend some time with them You're gonna, I know one, a basketball player auctioned off a lifetime admission to his camps. Because he's going to do camps. He's not even doing them yet, but he's going to do them because he's going in the NBA already. You know what I mean? And so this is actually on the edge of true name image likeness for us, because it was a kid, it was a young guy finishing his career in college. And so I think it's just a matter of time till we can't stop them from game worn shoes.
Yeah.
You know, and the limited number of shoes that you end up somehow keeping. And we're not going to give you 50 pairs of shoes anymore, but we are going to give you 10 or whatever it may be, you know, and that's yours, and you basically can do what you want with them. So I think NFT market, I mean, it's growing and learning. We're have some growing pains with it, because we're trying to figure out, help them understand what would be attractive to people.
Right. What about Barstool Sports? Because they're 36% owned by a gaming company.
Yeah.
What?
So kind of, at least on the surface, we haven't had to deal with them much yet. Haven't had to worry about it much. But it's no different than a school having a sponsorship with a casino and resort, you know, something like that. And the casino is not necessarily the sponsor. The resort is the sponsor. Yes, there's gaming. Yes, there's a sports book, but that's not the sponsor. So again, from where I'm sitting right now, the Barstool athletes are not endorsing gaming. The company that they work with happens to be invested in gaming. Yes. Now, I think that's a slope that can change really fast. So do you have, and I guess I should read your state statute. I should have looked at it. Do they have you can't align with the? Yes. Yeah, they can't endorse gaming. Again, like that goes back to the restaurant and bar, right?
Right.
I can't say I want to drink I love to drink a cold X after the game, but I can say, man, go to the restaurant after the game. I always go to the restaurant after the game and eat something.
Yeah.
And you can also get alcohol there.
My next question to you is, from what you've seen so far from your student athletes, are you seeing more local brands wanting to align with them, national brands, or both?
We've had a mix for sure. The local brands, for the most part, are the bigger dollars, but we've had several national brands that are more doing things. Again, I try not to mention all of it, but you know, a big apparel brand, for example, right? And they're going to give a student athlete some free gear, you know, a couple $1,000, and then you need to go do an appearance at their local store.
Like a Lululemon or something like that.
Something like that would be a good example, you know, because that's not necessarily, you know, some places not as direct a competitor to a Nike or something like that.
Yeah, one of the companies I've seen, and I don't know if they're active everywhere, is Fat Caps, because they have,
gotcha. Yeah.
They have a lot of, you know, the hats and the, you know, they got everything. They got hats, shoes, jeans, whatever. They got all, but there's a certain kind of vibe to their stuff.
Sure. Yeah, so we've had that kind of stuff. We've actually had this is very public, so it's easy. This was a good one to talk about. We got the deal of the day on the first day of NIL. We got the best deal, is according to a lot of people, right? And it wasn't the biggest deal, it was the most fun deal. One of our football players is big into dogs. He loves his dog, and he does everything with his dog, and it's all over his Instagram or whatever it is, or TikTok or whatever it is. I don't even know. But and PetSmart gave him a deal.
Smart gave him a deal. Yeah.
And he did a deal, you know.
I'm shocked, but because it's like, how do you have time to take care of a dog when you're at practice in school?
No, but he loves his dog, right? And he takes care of his dog, and it's a big deal. And it was a great feel-good video about shopping at PetSmart for his dog, for his buddy, you know, whatever, and all that kind of stuff. And so like, that's a great example. We've had a lot of car dealership, you know, wanting kids to endorse, come make appearances, things like that. And then lots of restaurants. And then one things we haven't talked about. Now, we keep talking about football because you and I both have lived our lives in football so much. We are 55-45 men to women doing deals. So it's not quite 50-50, but it's close.
Yeah.
And our biggest, our most lucrative student athlete is a female.
I'm not surprised. I thought from the beginning that women would do really well in this space.
Yeah.
Gymnasts, soccer players, because there are so many brands that are targeting to,
Young females,
Gen Zs, okay.
Yeah.
Their product is definitely aligned with that age group. And if these women are peers to that age group or younger, why wouldn't they? Whether it's beauty products, whether it's.
So this is a good kind of quick dive into the weeds again for a second, because this is perfect, right? So one of the things like what we did, instead of just saying, hey, young lady, young gymnast, which is a good example actually, is, hey, if you get enough followers and you make sure your brand is good, then maybe you'll get a job. We have spent hours with a major marketing firm, learning how it works, and they want clients, they want influencers, they want content creators. So they were willing to run diagnostics on our student athletes. And so we had a gymnast who only had 2,000 followers.
Okay.
But all her followers were 12 to 18-year-old girls. And her engagement rate, the typical engagement rate is about 2 or 3%. Now, some of that's because some people have millions and millions of followers, right?
Right.
But the typical engagement rate is 2 or 3%. She engages at about a 25 or 26% clip.
Right. So
and they told her, like, we have a client that we will want to partner with you, a makeup company, major national makeup company, will love it, that you're not going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars, but you're going to make some money being an influencer.
Yeah.
And that's a great match, right? That's exactly what it should be.
I agree. Particularly, the Olympics just ended, and
absolutely,
what was the most prominent sport? I think track and gymnastics.
The track and gymnastics, typically, absolutely. Yep.
Because the one track athlete, she got more medals than Carl or Ty. Carl was
I think she finally passed him at the end too.
She passed him at the end. And
I think her last medal.
He actually is a track athlete from USC.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
And then the gymnasts.
Yep, absolutely. And so that's where we think we're doing a better job, is helping kids find out how to be attractive to clients. We're not going to get you a job. We're not facilitating. We're not doing the things we're not supposed to do. But I mean, lots of us went to college, and we were poor while we were going to college. And imagine making $2,000 or $1,000 for a couple hours of work.
Kidding? It would have.
It's fantastic. Imagine, so again, that's where we took it. We said, for the first time since you and I have been in existence, a student athlete has a chance to be a student athlete, or be a student, and have a part-time job.
Yes.
And I was so excited about that. Literally, that's what got me. I was like, wait a second. That's what we're going to get. These kids are going to get part-time jobs. This is going to be great.
Right, because we were eating top ramen in college.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And then a couple of these kids for part-time work are making full-time money. So that's a good deal too. That's fun for kids.
Back at what my budget was in law school, boy.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it wasn't very much.
Not much. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So my budget in law school was zero because I didn't go to law school. So I'm not that smart. You've always been smarter than me. I've known that for years. So
I had like $400.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. That's
too funny.
So anything else you want to share about being an administrator? What do you see as the big issues going on right now and what about realignment?
Yeah, I think realignment is tricky. I think we're entering obviously the next wave of it. It certainly feels like that. I think there's some thought. This is my personal opinion. I think there's some thought that if there's increased separation, potentially, that the group of 5 schools, that may turn into a great thing for them, by the way. So look at it. This is the way I think about the world, is the FBS and FCS over time separated, right?
Right.
So there's an FCS champion.
Right.
that's worth something.
Right.
I think if we striate even more potentially, then there is a new niche of value for people. That where you were fighting uphill before, you may be fighting downhill. You may be at the top of the game in this environment. There have been people talk about, one playoff for this group and another playoff for this group. Those competition is attractive, right? Competition is fun. Competition and playing for your school is an incredible thing. And so realignment's going to hurt. It's going to, there'll be growing pains. Okay. But I think there's a place for everyone, and college sports is college sports. It is what it is in the United States. It is an integral piece of our society. And I, for one, have never apologized for that. I think it's one of the greatest institutions there is. And I think while it's going to be some growing pains again, I think it will all settle back out, and we'll keep them just like name, image, likeness, right? It's growing pains now, but it will settle out.
So let me ask you something. Were you aware of what was going on, that Texas and Oklahoma were coming into the SEC? Or
no, you could tell there was something going on. Like for my personal role, I could tell something wasn't, something was afoot. Certainly those last few weeks, and so there was just like there was a vibe around like something's happening here. This, we had always talked that realignment would happen again. Now, Texas and Oklahoma coming to the league, I don't know if I could pick those two schools out for you exactly, but I think
major.
I'm sorry, what?
Pretty major. I mean, because of like the rivalry between A&M and Texas, big rivalry, right?
A big rivalry.
Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, big rivalry. So, what's going to go on with those situations, do you think?
So Texas and Texas A&M will now be a conference rival in 2025,
right?
And Oklahoma State will be a non-conference rival, just like Georgia Tech, Clemson, South Carolina.
Any circumstance with the way you guys do your scheduling that Texas and Texas A&M would not play one another in a year?
I think there are a bunch of scheduling models. So I'm certainly not speaking on behalf of anyone, but for my own, my own take is you have 16 teams in the league. Scheduling is going to be an issue, especially if you want to increase exposure, right? So I can picture a model where there's, some permanent opponents and some rotating opponents, as opposed to a bunch of permanent opponents like the model is currently, and 1 or 2 or 3 rotating opponents. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. I don't know. I want to make sure I'm clear. Like, I can't speak for anybody because I don't know. So I'm not in the room right this minute. So
sit up at night going, oh my gosh, what are they going to do about this?
Yeah. I am in the room a lot, but not right this second. So I want to make sure I'm not speaking on anybody's behalf. So yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting.
What about the Alston case and COA cannot be capped? What's University of Arkansas's approach with that issue? Like, I'm a student athlete. I come into you and I say, hey, John, I want to study abroad. And I had a student do this, by the way.
Yeah.
A player that played in the NFL, he did study abroad, but I think he had to pay for it himself. So
probably. What
happens if a student athlete comes to you and says, hey, now that it's not capped, I want to study abroad this summer. Will you pay for it?
Right. So again, I'm not a lawyer, but I know one of the friction points still that we're all trying to figure out is how does federal cost of attendance integrate with Alston benefits? That's what we just, it's a good description, Alston benefits, meaning, so again, definitions, right? Scholarship, direct costs, tuition fees, room and board and books, indirect cost of attendance, travel to and from, miscellaneous supplies and expenses, things like that, right? So that's hard cost, the gap caps at cost of attendance. That's a federal law. You can't do anything about that. That's a federal law. Cost of attendance is a cap. Alston benefits are going to be outside of that cap, and everyone's trying to understand the logistics of how you provide those benefits, regardless of what they even are.
I think as long as they're educated, I've read the case several times. So my understanding is it's uncapped
Right.
as long as it's for educational purposes. Like now, what does educational purposes mean? Like, is having transportation to and from class an educational?
Possibly.
Can
Absolutely.
I get a car?
Right.
Can I give a Tesla? Can I?
But there are some people out there, and so again, we're all learning this still real time, is some people say, well, transportation costs and an allowance is already built into your cost of attendance. So you're already receiving it. And you can only give it up to a certain dollar amount.
Wow. Okay.
That's
so
where the friction is coming.
what about study abroad though? Let's say a student or a student says, hey, I want to go to medical school. I'll come to your school as long as once I'm done playing women's basketball, you'll pay for my med school.
Right. Currently, that is, they're actually, the way I understand it, currently that would be a question.
Yeah.
Because no, I don't, it does not say necessarily, it does not say lifetime educational benefits necessarily, unlimited.
Right.
Generally speaking, I think right now the Austin benefits are at your school.
Okay.
So in other words, I want to go to medical school. To even talk about that, you would have to have a medical school.
Right. At your school. Okay.
So I couldn't go to Utah medical school.
Like, let's say you have a really good MBA program,
right,
and they want to get an MBA after they play, and maybe they still have maybe they have a 5th year of eligibility,
right,
which normally that was allowed, right? But
sure,
then the question is, it's allowed, you're going to pay their tuition for that year. Will you pay it for and now they're done with eligibility.
right.
They got 1 year of the program,
yeah,
to finish.
Yeah.
Are you going to pay?
I think again, my personal take on it right now is I think a good place to start is we will finish what you start. So if you start your MBA program, we'll help you finish it.
Okay.
Right? You started your undergraduate degree, we should help you finish it. That seems like that's a good way to describe it, right?
Right.
So the funky Austin benefits come in where we want to buy you a computer because computer's an educational benefit. It's pretty logical. Except like there's a way to account for computers in cost of attendance. It's a cost of attendance adjustment. And cost of attendance doesn't necessarily calculate in a computer cost automatically. So if you want that and you need a loan to pay for it, you need a student loan, then you have to go get your cost of attendance adjusted on campus. Can we do it outside the cost of attendance? Can we just give it to them and not adjust their cost of attendance? Those are real questions. Those are hard logistical questions that people are trying to solve, including me. So,
you said you were a supervisor for academics. So
it's a lot of supervision. Yeah. And in all seriousness, I think that, I mean, I've said this for a little while. I will make a shameless plug for my industry as well. I think the future of athletics rests in compliance type people's hands. We are because again, this is a fun, quick example, right?
John, I just think that they were undervalued because that is a hard job in the athletics department.
It's incredibly relationship driven. And this is the way I like to describe compliance. If the business office has a question about a compliance issue, what do? They ask the compliance office. If the compliance office has a question about something going on in the business office, we learn all the business processes. We read the policies. We learn how the logistics work, where'd the money go, who paid it, who received it. And so we end up knowing so much about how the system actually works. Combine those kind of things with conference realignment, Austin benefits, cost of attendance, all these things. And I think our industry is ripe to help lead the next phase of college athletics. I think that's super, super important, actually.
Yeah. So. And I want to say that John was the best compliance officer at
I appreciate it.
So the hardest part about compliance is you have to say no to people.
Yeah.
You have to say no to people you like. But John always tried to make sure that, and I think it's back to your attitude from the beginning, you're a solution-driven person. So you'd say, well, this is the rule, but maybe we can do this. Rather, no, which usually when you go to compliance,
it's not,
right?
we have a rule. First, you say yes, if at all possible. You can't just say no. You have to think first.
Yeah.
And this is just being goofy now between two old friends, but like my job, I say, is to tell people no and make them like it so much that they want to come back and do it again. It's a hard job, actually. When you think about it, that's a tough job. And so,
because I think saying no to Pat Hill would have been hard.
saying no to Pat Hill was not easy. There was some yelling and screaming and swearing involved.
Yeah, and then I think was Bob Bennett the baseball coach?
Absolutely, no question. Absolutely, he's a yeller and a screamer too.
And then was Tarkanian the basketball coach?
Tarkanian was the basketball coach, and that's just one school of experience, by the way. So I've got some more. I've got a longer list.
Those three, I would just. And then was Margie Wright the softball coach? Margie
Wright was the softball coach, winningest coach in NCAA history.
Yes.
And tough as nails. As tough as it possibly.
I'm just thinking you might have the.
I am battle hardened, as they say. Saying yes is easy. I know how to say no. I know how to deal with hard people. I know how to deal with stuff. Yeah. So it's but you survive in compliance for 25 years. You got to be doing something. You got to be doing something right.
It's the art of being nice, John. I think that's
art of being nice as best I can.
Put a smile on your face, right?
Yeah, always can smile. And be people first, employees second. First, we're people.
Yeah.
That's, in all seriousness, I got, you and I, we've known each other for years and years and years, but like always be people first. Like that's the way we treat our student athletes too, that we said they're people first. They're trying to make money. If we bring it back around to NIL, they're just trying to make money. So how could I possibly be upset at them for asking a question?
Oh, of course. Yeah. So how's your wife? How's your kids? How's your parents?
Wife, Amanda, is doing great. 34 years since our first date in about 2 weeks, September 5th, 1987, week before we played Iowa at Arizona. It's sad how we judge our lives in football games, right? But that's literally how I know. I can remember it like it was yesterday. But Amanda's doing great. Our oldest, John, graduated from college a year ago, just got engaged a couple of months ago. So John the second is getting married next May, and our twins, Reed and Ellie, are sophomores at the University of Arkansas and doing great. Well, happy fraternity and sorority kids. So, for them. So yeah, it's a pretty good deal, pretty good life we lead.
Is your dad and mom doing okay?
They're doing great. Yeah, they're doing great. My dad is not mobile. I think we talked about this the other day. My dad's not mobile, and that's tough. But his mind's clear, and that helps. And so he sits in the house, talks on the phone all day. So it's good.
Somebody else I know, like my dad.
Yeah, you're going to say calls us from
Juan Diego High School, and he's helping at Juan Diego High School. Then he's got his foundation. Then he's had radio shows. I don't know. He's busy.
It's funny. That's what my dad does. He sits on the phone and talks to his former players, and somebody calls him for advice, and he goes and does his thing. So
yeah,
it's pretty funny.
Okay, well, it was great talking to you. This was
great talking to you. In all seriousness, I do hope you know how much we love y'all. We think about y'all all the time. We talk about you all the time. We really do. And we talk about the McBrides and the Baxters a lot in my house. So,
you guys too. In fact, John said, I want to talk to John after you're done. I said, okay. But how does somebody get a hold of you, John, if they need to get a hold of you for some reason?
Yeah. So, my cell number, I'm happy for my cell number to be out there in public. It's 479-935-5589. And you can find me on ArkansasRazorbacks.com. I want people to get a hold of me. I love talking about athletics.
Okay.
All right. Good deal.